Guys, I got a request to do a UI element for current health. Um, Instead of doing the regular health bar that everybody seems to be doing tutorials on, and everybody likes that kind of display, seems to be common. This request was for a numeric, but in a percentage. So you'll have like 100% health, and then as you take damage and heal, that value changes numerically on screen for you. So that's what we're going to be doing. First thing you need to do for this, though, is open up your first person character, and we need to create, or third person character, first person or third person, doesn't matter, it's done the same way, so it's your preference on that. But I'm going to do this in the first person. We need to go in and create a couple variables for it. We're going to do player health, and that needs to be, I hate when I do that, that needs to be a float. Oh, actually I like the capital H. Player health, and then we need to create another one, player health max. So player health is the value that we're going to be grabbing to display in the HUD. Let me compile this real quick. And that, its default value is what the player would have on spawn. So that's in play. Now, player health max is a control variable. So when you go back to adding health, like healing, you don't want the player to be able to bypass a certain point. So like if you have, like, if you tell your player your game setup that you want a max health for a player to be 100 HP, you don't want them to be able to heal past that point to say 150, 200, 250 HP. So you set a player health max to limit how far they can go, which is going to be, for me, it's going to be 100 HP, 100 health. So those are those two. Now, once we get these, we can actually go in and create our UI, a little widget for this. So I'm just gonna, I have an assets folder. I house all my assets in, and I have one for UI. And with this, what we're going to create is a user interface widget blueprint. Now, I'm going to name this UIW underscore health. User interface widget health. Makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Save it real quick. Now, in here, I want to have my health, numeric health here, and a percent sign. And to do percent signs, you can do it multiple ways. One way is to import an image, and then in your canvas panel you can do it, import your image, and then apply a text block over the top of it for your numeric value, and just have the percent symbol part of the graphic, part of the image itself. The other way to do it is when you grab the player health to actually pull it in and display it, you can append a percent symbol in there. So you're going to end up taking a float and converting that to text, and then appending to text, or you can go in the string, convert it to a string, append, and then convert that back to text. But you'll see the conversion to text when we go do the other aspects of this. But that's one way to do it. The other way, the simple way for me, the way that I'm going to do it is I'm just going to just drop a text block in play for it. So this text block is actually going to be our health value, and we're going to take this and we're going to shrink it down. And let's go ahead and make it red. boom, we got our red here. And then from there, we're going to get another block, drop it in right next to it, and we're going to change that to 1% and shrink it down, and we're going to change its color red so it matches, and then we're going to line those up. See what that looks like. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty solid. Now, before you do anything else, what we need to do is see what this does when the value changes from 100, say, to 10, you're going to end up with this big gap. So to fix that, what you need to do is go down to appearance and then justification and write a line. And when that happens, you end up with too much space in between. Let's see. So that looks pretty good. Now let's go back and change it to 100. Make sure everything's solid with that. That looks good. Now all we need to do is select that, hold Control, select the other one, and I'm using my arrow keys to move this into position. That looks good. Alright, boom. Now, as far as the numeric value right here, it's just a text block. It's static text widget. There's nothing dynamic about that. It's always going to say 100 no matter what. What we need to do with this is we need to come over here and bind it to something, and you can create the binding. So I'm going to create a binding, and what that's going to do is going to create a function for me with a return value, which returns value is going to be text, and I can actually type text in there and leave it at that, or I can grab that value, generate that value, and pass it off to this. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So to do that, let me just put a little bit more space over here. First up, we're going to rename this to get health. So when you or another dev comes in here, he knows what the hell this function does. Off of this, we want to go over and we want to cast this. We're going to cast to first person, and we're going to cast the character, first person character. Now if you're using the third person blueprint, please cast a third person character. Now from there, we need to get that player as an object reference. So we're going to get player and character. Get player character. And that's that right there. And I'm going to take you, move you out some more. From here, we got a reference here, object reference for our character. And as that first person character reference, we're going to get the player health. Get player health. And then from there, always eats up a lot of room, we're going to just drag it here right to the return value, and you'll see that it convert float to text. It'll auto do this for you. So I'm going to go ahead and straighten that up so everything's nice and clean. So that's pretty much it. Create a binding. The binding actually creates a function. We rename the function to get health so we know what the hell it does, and then we're going to cast that. We're going to execute off and cast to first person character, third person character if you're using it, and then we're going to get that player character as the reference, and as that reference we're going to get that player's health, and then we're going to pass it off to the return node, which will populate that text block. So now this text block is dynamic. Good to go. So with that, we're pretty much done with this. We don't have anything else to do with this. So you can actually close it if you want to. Nothing else will be done with that. from here, what we need to actually do is we need to actually invoke, basically call that widget that we just created so it will display on screen. And the way that we're going to do that is with begin play event. And let's see, we're going to go here, event begin play. And if you already have one, say like up here or somewhere else you have one, what you're going to end up having to do is you can only have one event begin play in the event graph. So you're just going to have to make all your little calls linear. It's fun. So you just gotta plan ahead on this stuff, because if you already have one and you try to create a new one like I just did, it'll actually jump to the current one that's in the event graph, and you just have to use that. Just remember, you got to stack everything linear, left to right, and go that route. But anyway, from there, what we need to do is we need to create a widget. Create widgets. Boom. And it's an empty construct at this point. And we're going to zoom in here so you can see it. And now we're going to go, and for the class, we're going to select the UIW health class, the one we just made. And then from there, off the return value, we're going to actually add to viewport. And you see how it automatically connected that execute. So that's a cool thing. Now if you just went off the execute and did it, you'd have to manually tag these together. Some people forget to do this, return value to target, and then they're wondering why it doesn't work. So that's it. That right now will allow us to have that 100% on screen. So right now it's just going to always say 100% because we don't have currently a way to actually damage the player to reduce the health. So that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to create a function. I'll just damage player, try to keep it one word. And with this bad boy, it's pretty simple. Take the player health, get it. We're going to right click, random float in range. This is going to allow us to set a range of values, so like 3.5 and 15. So what this does is it randomly picks a number or a float between 3.5 and 15. And what we're going to do here is we're going to subtract, so minus sign, and you'll get float minus float. Boom. That's how easy it is to deduct health from a player. Now, the next thing we have to do, because this is a float, and on screen, you don't want that percentage to be a decimal. You don't want those decimals in your display. We have to use something like ceil or floor to give us a rounded whole integer value. So we're going to use floor for this example. You can do this all different kinds of ways, but I'm just going to keep it simple and floor it. Float, floor. So now that value is floored. So what we need to check now is to make sure that this value is not less than or equal to 0. So, and now this value is an integer, and we want to do less than equal to 0. And you know how I like my lines straight. Less than or equal to 0. Pull this out over here. Less than or equal 0. Now we need to take this up to a branch for a conditional branch. This is our condition. If the new value is less than or equal to 0, we want to default set player health to 0. Let me just tie this back in here. So now we're all tied in. Okay, so if the floor value, our new health, after deducting something from it, is less than or equal to 0, we're going to just set it back to 0. Default. Now, false, we still have to set a health. So we're going to go and set player health. But this time, we're going to use that floor value. And actually, I'm going to pull this over here, and then we're going to take this down, and we're going to do a reroute, and then connect it. Take this, put it straight, and straighten that line so everything's pretty. So now, if this value is not 0, it's greater than 0, we're just going to set that over as the new player health. Compile, save, done. Damage player is done. Now we need to go back to the event graph, and we're going to set up, I like to use num minus your number pad minus key, and I'm going to use that to trigger damage. So every time I hit that, it's going to take damage. And we're going to compile, save, get up in here, and we're going to play. So now we have our 100%. I hit the minus, and I'm getting this random deduction in damage. And it just keeps on going. Now I'm at 0 health, technically dead, but still alive. That's a no-no. So we're going to go back into first person, and we have to create a new function to check the health, see if it's 0, and if it is 0, we need to basically make the player dead. So new function, name this whatever the hell you want, is player live question mark. So now I have this function. Now what I need to do with this is get the player health. I need to go over and make sure that it's, see if it's less than equal to 0, and then we're going to go up and create a branch, connect this branch, and I'll straighten this guy out because I like clean code. If the condition is met, true. So if player health is less than or equal to 0, true, we want something to happen. And your first move should not be destroy actor. It should be disable input. And the target will be self. And what this does is it basically you as the player no longer have any control. None of your inputs are sent. So we've disabled your input. So if you're technically dead 0 health, you can't apply any more health. You can't shoot. You can't move. You're done. After which point, yeah, you could destroy the actor and all that, and destroy the health interface and so forth. But that's just a whole different topic, and we're just gonna go with this simple process. So I'm just gonna kill myself real quick. Boom. And wait a minute. Wait, it's not working. Why isn't it working? Because I didn't go back to the event graph and set it up. So we're gonna look at this damage player. I didn't use the daggone thing. There you go. So now you have, every time damage is applied to the player, we do a check, is the player alive still? And that would do it. Now you could do it like this and just execute it off of this one, this node. So we're setting the player health to 0. You can do the check here. Yes, you can. Personally, I don't like going that route because you lose kind of track of things and where things are and whatnot when they're tucked away inside of another function. So I don't do it like that. I just like keeping it in the event graph, so when a damage event comes in, it's going to hit a certain function, and we're just going to run it off of that, and then we'll tie it in this way. So we have that. So now we're going to test it, play, deduct my health. I'm 0. I no longer have mouse control, no keyboard control. I can't do anything. I'm technically dead. So that's working. Next aspect of this, and the final run through on this, is healing the player. New function, heal player, and heal players where we're going to use the player max health. So first we need to determine whether or not we can heal the player. So in order to do that, get player health, we get max player health, and we do a comparison. Less than. Is player health less than max health? So basically, is this player's health less than 100? Not equal to, but less than. And then from there, we just go up and do a branch. We're going to connect this to execute it. And technically what we can do here is just do a little comment. Can I heal? Question mark. Can I heal? Compile, save. If yes, we have to do one more control. Otherwise, false, we can't heal, end of execution. So I'm going to go ahead and get this branch out here because we're going to have to do one more check before we set. And I'm going to line this guy up, make them all straight, push him off a little bit. So we need to get player health again. We need to generate a random, because we're just healing random float in range. And then we're going to add these values together. So you can plus sign, float plus float. And we're going to say 3 points and 15 points. Let's just keep it simple. This is our health that we can add. Now, what we can do with this at this point is this is where our conditional comes in, and we just pull this out. Pull it right there. We need to do a conditional to see if this health is greater than max. So we need greater than, and we're going to pull player max out here and put him here, get player max health, hook that up, and then we're going to hook this conditional up. And I want to actually move him a little bit further out, so I'm going to have to do a reroute. Alright, so if this new health is greater than player health, max player health, we need to set player health. We need to set this player health actually, we can just boop, boop, pull this one, get. We're just going to hook it up like that and call it a day. Nice and simple. We're just going to set the health. So if the health is greater than max, we're just going to set it to max. On the false thing, I can just make this simple. Control CV, pull this down. Now for false, we come over here and we're going to floor. Actually, no. Let me do the reroute. Keep it pretty so you guys can follow. From here, we're going to do a floor. Floor. And then hook this here. And hook that there. And that's it. Simple. And what we end up getting over here, take damage. Oh, that's right. Didn't hook up the event graph. So we're going to do num plus. And we're going to just drag heal player out. And we're going to execute heal. Compile, save, boom. Now play. Take the damage, heal the damage, and it maxes out 100. Take damage, heal damage, take damage, heal damage. And that is it. Any questions, set up comments, and I'll get back to you. Peace.